Welcome, I'm Terry Christensen and this is Valley Politics. Today we'll talk about the role of labor unions in local politics with Ben Field, Executive Officer of the South Bay Labor Council. Then, especially for the holiday season, Darrell Cortez and Dennis Brown will brief us on Shop with a Cop. We'll close our show with part 3 of our interview with former San Jose Mayor Tom McEnery. Among other things, he'll tell us how the powers of the mayor were enhanced while he was mayor in the 1980s. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Ben Field, Executive Officer of the South Bay Labor Council.
Thank you, good to be here.
Thank you. So tell us what's your job? What's the job as Executive Officer?
The Labor Council represents 101 local unions, and our primary work is political and communications work and in supporting their organizing activities. So we do a wide variety of work in those 3 areas.
And how do you get this job? I mean, what do you actually do?
What do I do? Yeah, my days are varied. I think that that's one of the things that makes it such a great job for me. I work with a lot of community leaders and community activists to try to advance the interests of working families. And as a practical matter, day to day, that can mean lobbying local elected officials, helping to organize events, strategizing about campaigns, or fundraising, and a whole lot of other things too.
And what qualified you for the job?
Well, maybe the question assumes something that's not entirely in evidence. I didn't come from the labor movement. I was a DA for 16 years, and when I decided it was time to move on, I started talking with friends in the community about what I might do next. And as it turned out, it felt like the transition from criminal justice to economic and social justice wasn't that much of a leap. And so I made that change.
I should probably say that I was a member of the Labor Council. I was a delegate to the Labor Council for the faculty union for many years before you arrived there. And then, of course, we know each other because you teach at San Jose State sometimes too.
Yes, right? And I am this semester.
Good. So you mentioned 101 unions.
Yes.
It's about 100,000 union members in the county and San Benito County. But
a little more than that now, yes. We're growing.
That's a lot of members. Yeah, growing is the point I was gonna get at, because nationally the labor movement is shrinking.
Yes.
From about 20% in 1983, I think, to about 11% now. California's better, percentage is better, around 16%.
Yes.
What's happening in Santa Clara Valley?
Well, we are growing, and I think that as a result, we can be a model for what can be done elsewhere. I think that the reasons for our growth are varied. One is that there is a widespread appreciation of the need for organized labor because of the challenges working families face here. But it's not just that there is that widespread understanding of the importance of the labor movement. It's also that I think that the labor movement itself is doing some things right to advance the interests of working families, so that it's clear that that supporting labor is a good thing for a lot of people in this community to do.
Where's the organizing happening? Where are new members coming from? Or new unions? Or?
Well, it's both. We are affiliating new unions, but it's also that we're doing new organizing. The umbrella campaign called Silicon Valley Rising was started a few years ago by the Labor Council and the nonprofit that the Labor Council started 20 years ago called Working Partnerships USA. And the two organizations, in collaboration with a very wide variety of other community organizations, have been working on housing issues, policies that raise the floor for working families, and organizing low-wage service sector workers in the tech sector. And we've been doing that successfully now for several years under this umbrella campaign, Silicon Valley Rising.
So those tech sector workers are security officers, janitors?
That's right.
Transportation drivers?
Yes, yeah. And cafeteria workers. Those have been the main focus of the organizing drive so far. And those organizing drives have been very successful. We saw the Security Officers Campaign, the largest organizing campaign in Northern California, come to a successful conclusion earlier this year when thousands of security officers formed a union, and they're now bargaining for a contract. We've seen great success by the Teamsters in organizing shuttle bus, so-called Google bus drivers, shuttle bus drivers for the tech sector. Janitors have been organized for quite some time after a successful drive quite some time ago, which I'm sure you remember, called Justice for Janitors. And then finally, cafeteria workers are organizing now. We've had great success on several campuses, Intel and Cisco being a couple of them, and outside of this area, outside of this county at Facebook.
So let's go back a little to talk about labor's broad public policy goals.
Yes.
In the last couple of years and in the coming years. What are some of those?
Well, we have tried to advance policies that help working families, whether or not those working families are union members or not. And so we led the successful campaign to raise the minimum wage in the city of San Jose. There were a very wide variety of community partners involved in that campaign, but it was a labor-led campaign. Same thing with our successful initiative last year called Opportunity to Work, which gave access to part-time workers to additional hours. There were many, many part-time workers and a growing number of part-time workers who weren't able to get enough hours to make ends meet. And so we led an initiative to fix that problem. Now, the minimum wage workers and the workers who get additional hours under Opportunity to Work, most of them, the vast majority, are not union members.
Which takes me to the question of why are you focused on those issues rather than exclusively on issues that benefit your union members?
Yeah. Well, I think just broadly speaking, there are two reasons. One is that historically and still, organized labor is the only mass organization that advances the interests of working families. That's simply the role that we play in politics, and it's for good reason. And that's how we generate the level of support that we have in this community for organized labor. Also, by raising the floor for working families who are not represented by a union, it means that it is easier for unions to organize workers.
Some of our past guests on this show have actually complained about some of these issues, saying that labor has helped drive the city of San Jose into budget deficits because of pension costs, and on some issues like living wage and Opportunity to Work have driven up the cost of doing business in the valley. What's your response to that?
Well, with respect to pensions, I think that there's been a lot of political opportunism exercised around the pension issue. The fact is that when pensions were underfunded, it was because of investment losses and not because of a failure by union members to put in their fair share into pension funds. And so blaming working families for the underfunding of pensions is simply unfair, and it's based on oftentimes misrepresentations about what actually happened in that situation. With regard to driving up the cost of business in the city of San Jose, I think that the answer is that if business in San Jose doesn't create good quality jobs, then I think we should take a second look at our business strategy. Right now, unfortunately, the city of San Jose has no good quality job strategy. They have an economic development strategy, but that's not the same thing. And so if when working families say we want good quality jobs, that has the effect of driving up the cost of business, well, maybe that's something that's worth doing anyway.
So next year's an election year.
Yes.
What are labor's priorities going to be in that year? There's a slim progressive majority on the city council at the moment.
Yes.
There's a more solid progressive majority on the county board of supervisors at the moment.
Yes.
But both of those could be in jeopardy with open seats.
That's right. That's right. And so certainly we intend to protect our majorities for progressive policies in the city of San Jose, at the county of Santa Clara. by backing candidates who are progressive. But we also have a number of initiatives in mind to further advance the interests of working families. One will be a local hire initiative that will help ensure that the work that's done on construction sites here in San Jose is done by local workers. I think most people, when they see a crane go up, they think, oh, good,
jobs.
Local jobs.
Yeah.
Not the case. Unfortunately, now, when construction comes to the city of San Jose, an awful lot of the time those workers are coming in from out of the state and they're getting paid wages that are substandard for this area. They're actually undercutting the local wage rate for local workers, and that's a serious problem. We need to address that problem.
Let's go back to candidates for a minute. What's the process for labor endorsing a candidate?
It's a very democratic process, and
I'm sure that means with a small d.
Yes, with a small d. It involves a lot of people, and it's honestly somewhat arduous for the candidates. They have to fill out what is undoubtedly the longest questionnaire.
It's notorious, yes.
It is notorious. Every year we try to shorten it, and every year it seems to get a little longer. Then they come in for an interview, and then there are follow-up. There are follow-ups oftentimes after the interview. The executive board of the Labor Council, which represents the largest unions in the county, makes a recommendation to the delegate body, which represents all 101 of the Labor Council's affiliates, and the delegates, who number in the hundreds, get the final vote on whether we endorse a candidate or not.
And it has to be 2/3 vote to endorse.
That's correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, although I must say that we haven't actually had it come to a head count.
Oh, well, you were around in the 70s, Ben.
We recently have had a very high level of consensus around candidates, and hopefully we keep it that way.
I guess another critique that comes up with labor is expecting candidates to score 100% on the questionnaire.
Yeah.
And if a candidate's at 60 or 75%, that's not good enough, which means a lot of candidates are very unhappy. Is it a 100% requirement?
No, but we hold candidates to a high standard. We expect them to advance the interests of working families, and if they say that they're not going to do that, then it's going to make it hard for us to see our way clear to back them. And if they say they're going to do that and then they haven't done it, it's going to be difficult for us to support their re-election.
Turning for a moment to national politics, a lot of union members nationally voted for Donald Trump, and there's been a little slippage in union members voting for union-endorsed candidates.
Yes.
What's going on there, and is it happening locally, do you think?
We've not seen that locally at all. The labor movement locally has been very solid in opposing the Trump administration and administration policies. We've seen in other parts of the country, for instance, some union members backing Trump policies on immigration and on trade. The local labor movement is not doing that, and I see no prospect that that's going to change in the near future. We're unified in opposing Trump and his administration. In fact, I think one of the few silver linings of the Trump administration is that he has been a great organizer for local labor.
Coming back locally, a lot of people are surprised at labor's political clout in the Valley because they think of it as a high-tech corporate valley and not a place with a lot of union members. And in fact, 100,000 is a lot of members, but that's probably a tenth of the workforce here, maybe, in the county. But labor's had a pretty good run politically.
We have.
With many friendly candidates elected to state, federal, local office. What's the secret of your success?
It actually is no secret, and it's a very simple thing.
It's not a secret?
It's not a secret. We get outspent in race after race.
Yeah.
But we win anyway because what's more important than spending is grassroots political activity. And we have the largest, most sophisticated campaign operation in the South Bay, perhaps in the Bay Area. So other candidates who are backed by special interests can afford to do all sorts of expenditures on mail, TV, digital advertising, but we have hundreds of people going out every weekend, making calls every week, and talking to voters directly, and there is simply no substitute for having a person-to-person conversation about a candidate or cause, and that's how we win.
Yeah, I think other people are figuring that out too, but they can't match the volunteer volume that Labor can. Well, Ben Field, I'm sorry, but we're out of time.
Oh, well, thanks very much for your excellent questions.
Well, thanks for being here today.
Pleasure being here.
Next, Dennis Brown and Darrell Cortez will tell us about Shop with a Cop. Then we present part 3 of our interview with former San Jose Mayor Tom McEnery.
Hello, my name is Dennis Brown, former San Francisco 49er.
And I'm Darrell Cortez, Executive Director of the Shop with a Cop Foundation of Silicon Valley. For the past 10 years, the Shop with a Cop Foundation Silicon Valley hosts over 100 underserved children for a holiday shopping spree with local Bay Area police officers.
Now, for many of these children, this is a special opportunity that becomes the only holiday experience they will have. Some participants are selected from Readers Are Leaders, a reading campaign at local elementary schools, where they have earned their way into the shopping spree. Other children who are participating are living in traumatic crises from losses of parents, domestic violence, and other tragedies.
With a uniformed police officer by their side during the shopping spree, each child receives a $150 Target gift card to shop for gifts for their family members and for themselves. The whole premise is to humanize people behind the badge so that children can grow up trusting the police.
Now, this unique program brings the holiday spirit to children who really need it the most. And the hope is to build a safer community for our future.
If you want to support the Shop with a Cop Foundation of Silicon Valley, please go to www.shopwithacopsv.org. Thank you.
Let's go back to 1984. That's the year that city staff made some bad investments trying to make money to supplement the budget and lost, at that time it was $60 million. I don't know, the figures are a little bit different depending on how you look at it. But that was a significant hit on the city budget at that time. As a response to that, in 1986, there was a ballot measure that moved some authority away from the city manager and to the mayor. Ballot measure passed, and it gave the mayor more budget authority, more staffing authority, an Office of Policy Analysis, an Office of Public Information. It enhanced the power of the mayor. How important was that to your success in the remaining years of your term?
Well, the immediate reaction to that was shock and very little awe. We fired 11 people.
This is the reaction to the bond,
The bond loss, which happened so quickly. Believe me, one of the things I was told when I became mayor is you don't have to worry about the finance department. They really have things under control. They do things very safe, etc. You can't make this stuff up. The guy who was making most of the major investments had started issuing dog licenses in San Jose. And even though he was running a portfolio of $300 or $400 million, his knowledge hadn't succeeded much beyond where he was at the dog license stage. He used to keep track of gigantic trades, 50, 60, $80 million on a Snoopy calendar. I mean, you couldn't possibly have your confidence in the city manager form of government or your fears about the city of San Jose's competence any more shaken than it was then. You know, I was mayor, I was responsible. I decided then, and that was reinforced in 1986, that the power ought to be where the accountability is, and that's in the mayor's office. The citizens agreed, and that's what happened. As a postscript to that, It's a little bit like finding out Francisco Franco is still alive and running some country in South America. The very same traders who were involved in San Jose's loss of that $60 million then did exactly the same thing with the treasurer of Orange County in the early 90s when Orange County went bankrupt.
Yeah.
So once again, government is very slow in learning.
Do you think that was enough? The additional powers for the mayor's office, do you think that was enough? Do you think we should go fully to a strong mayor form of government?
Who's the city manager now, Terry?
Dave Sykes.
Okay, and you know that because it
I
was
read
in the
it
paper
in the newspaper
today.
Yeah.
You follow.
Yeah.
I would ask.
Most people don't.
I would
You're right.
ask the rest of the people in this
Yeah.
room or anybody on the street, and if 1 out of 10 knew, I'll buy you lunch. The power should not be in that type of an unelected official. You know, unlike Congress or the state legislature, a mayor is somebody who's close to you. You know, I mean, I thought some of the best feedback I ever got was standing in a movie line or at a high school basketball game when people would come up and say, and 90% of the time it would be something positive because people are generally good and generous and kind of respect you, particularly in something like that. And some of the time it was, I really think you made a mistake over here. I think that's pretty healthy. You know, how many times do you think a congressperson or a state legislator gets that? How often do you think any governor or president gets that?
Well, almost never.
That's my point. Yeah, I really think.
But still, the manager appoints the police chief, the fire chief, council, and the mayor ratify the appointment. But do you think that power should be in the office of the mayor?
Absolutely.
Appointing department heads? Yeah, so it should be more.
Absolutely. You know, as I once said to a city manager, the only thing you know about crime and traffic and things in that area is what you know driving down Heading Street to City Hall. And I didn't mean that as a joke when I said it, because the one department that above all others I find important in the city is the police department.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can't have good parks, you can't have good school districts, you can't have the feelings that we used to have at one time in America without a police department that's in and of the people. And I think most people would agree my police chief for 8 years, Joe McEnery, was one of the best, and our police department exceptional, particularly at the middle management level. So I poured tremendous resources into them. We had a business tax increase when I was mayor that added more police officers, not the nonsense that President Clinton did where he gave cities certain amounts of new officers, but the mayors prior to that, including here, took out police officers out of the budget, so there was really no increase. So it's that kind of shell game that city managers always have played because, frankly, they just don't see the importance of a police department. And, you know, mayors do because they're close to the people, and if they're not close to the people, they can get jobs in, you know, television or news or something.
Well, speaking of close to the people, some of the people you were alleged not to be close to included the minority community, even though you won the East Side both times you ran for mayor. But there were criticisms of insensitivity to minority issues. There were issues about displacement of minority residents for a couple of redevelopment projects. What's your response to that?
You know, I think you said earlier in one of your questions that that was a common criticism of me. It's kind of like what you say about common sense. It's not very common. I never felt that. We can get to one issue on statutes that I know you want to talk about, but you know, I won all those districts. You know, I went to schools as my family did in downtown San Jose, which is about as diversified. They were Catholic schools. But they were as diversified with Mexican-American kids and Filipino kids as anywhere you can find. I live in that kind of neighborhood. So I won't say, as no one can really say, that I understand exactly all of their needs. But I think if you're adding police and parks and recreation officers and museums and trying to provide jobs, you know, whatever that criticism is, you know, I think I'm perfectly comfortable with both the criticism and the people who feel strongly about it.
That wraps up our third season of Valley Politics. We'll be back in 2018 with more on politics, history, and public policy in the Valley. We'll cover the state of the city with Mayor Sam Liccardo and the state of the county with the president of the Board of Supervisors. But we'll also introduce you to new and emerging leaders. Remember, it's an election year. And of course, we'll hear more from the people who shaped the history of the Valley. Until then, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for Create TV San Jose. And you can let us know what you think about our show and suggest future topics or guests by email at valleypolitics@createtvsj.org, on Twitter at @valley_politics, and by following us on Facebook. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics today. See you next time.